And gentlemen, looks like Mr. Sydney Marr is back at it again with another banger, my friend. And this one's going to be focusing on Septimont, the amazing story that we've had in the first part of version 2.4, and I guess where this story might go from here. And as we're all familiar, Sydney Marr is one of the, I would say, probably one of the smartest dudes in the Wuthering Waves space. And so I'm excited to see what his take is on the End of Septimont and this whole Ragnarok situation in Wuthering Waves. Let's go ahead and get right on into it and see what it's all about.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, rovers. Today's video is about Septimont's Ragnarok. Now, the chances are you've probably heard of the term Ragnarok before, but even if you don't know what it is, don't worry, because we are going to cover that today and how it may be applying to Septimont. There are a lot of correlations between Ragnarok and Septimont, which is why we're speculating that Ragnarok is the main theme of Septimont's storyline. Now, I originally thought, and that is why this is a double upload with the other video, that Ragnarok, or the Dawn of Ragnarok, will be the theme for Fusion Rover. So at the time of creating the Wuthering Waves in 2028 video, I had Ragnarok in mind and knew a little bit about it because I was expecting the story to take place around Ragnarok. It has a lot to do with fire and fusion and the coming together of deities, so that is why I thought there is a possibility for it. So the other video is talking about Fusion Rover and version 4.0, or what we think version 4.0 will be. This video is talking about Ragnarok and how it perfectly aligns with what we know already about Septimont.
I know one thing about Septimont is that there's like a big focus on like the world or like the city ending. Okay, and this is gonna be a little bit of like version 2.4 spoilers. The Kartithia point of view, right? When we're in the eyes of Kartithia during that quest, everything is fucked up. Everything is destroyed. It is not good, right? It's not good vibes. We don't see anybody else in her part of the storyline, but what's the connection between the two? And I feel like that's what this is going to explore pretty significantly.
Enough yapping from me, enjoy the video. Okay, so I just want to add in this part before we begin, and that is to answer the question, why Ragnarok? Now, because we know that Kuro is taking Greco-Roman mythology as a basis for Renesita, we don't know how much of a basis it will be for other countries, but we know that it will still be present, just not as obvious or as fundamental as it is in Renesita. When we look at Greco-Roman mythology, the only real time or place in the story writing and literature talking about a group of warriors or heroes on the same power level is when there is reference to Elysium. Now, Elysium itself, there are two versions of it, or two realms of Elysium, and that's why we have two realms of Septimont. We have Kartithia's realm and we have the other realm that Rover is in. The problem in literature is there's not a very deep story around Elysium or a general consensus for Elysium and the story around it. That's why we already have two realms of Elysium.
True. Yeah, okay. Now I'm starting to see where the theory's starting to take place. Yes, sir. I'm beginning to see it now.
So what story writers do when there's a bunch of heroes that are the main focus and there's no real big power gap between different tiers or different groups of people, like there are Threnodians, Sentinels, and Resonators, then writers look towards Ragnarok and Norse mythology. And this is because in Norse mythology, their gods are deemed killable. If we want a Norse mythology counterpart of Elysium, that would be Ragnarok and Valhalla. And this video will serve as proof of this concept and probably explain what are the possibilities for Septimont's lore. Alright, so the plan of action is to read the story of Ragnarok just briefly, and on screen you'll be seeing all the references and in-game footage from version 2.4's trailer and the special program that symbolizes or visualizes what is being said. After we cover the story, then there is a section about Cristoforo and how he relates to Ragnarok.
They've done such a fantastic job. Kuro Games has done such an amazing job of doing like the foreshadowing of this guy across like so many different storylines. I remember the first time we ever see this dude is in version 2.0 at the very start of the quest. I think he's actually, aside from Shorekeeper, one of like the first shorekeeper at Alto, right, with his boat. He's one of the first significant people that we actually meet in the quest line. I think he's the first person we actually meet in Renacida. I think we meet him before like Phoebe, Carlotta, all of that. We just see him like, you know, around like the pilgrims, going on the boat, that sort of stuff. And bro has been cooking in every single version update, and now we know he's basically like he seems like the main villain sort of guy of the Septimont arc.
The story of Ragnarok begins with the death of Balder, the god of light and most widely beloved of Odin's sons. And yes, this is the same Balder that is used as a concept for Baldur's Gate. When Balder foresees his death in a dream, his mother secures oaths from all creatures, including fire, water, metal, trees, stones, and illnesses, not to harm Balder. So essentially she was looking for a way, or found a way, to make him immortal by making all the creatures take an oath not to harm him. So already we have a little bit of foul play by Frigg, his mother, by finding a way to change his fate or control his fate, kind of like match fixing his life. This is something similar in Septimont that has been teased, that there is a bit of cheating in the gladiator fights, possibly relating to the death of this Resonator NPC who has the name Oral on her shoulder pad. Ragnarok's story continues by saying only the mistletoe is thought too young and slender to take the oath, so it's the only thing that can harm Balder. Now a mistletoe is something that is shown with Juno. Whether it's a golden mistletoe or whether it's a golden bow, we don't know. It could be both or symbolize both. We know that a bow is important to the Septimont and Renacita storyline because we have the golden bow from the essay of the Regenesi drama, and we have the bow of legions. In Ragnarok, it is through the trickster Loki that the blind...
I'm beginning to see it now. I think I am beginning to see the pieces come together. I see.
God Hoth hurls a shaft of a mistletoe at Balder to end his life. Balder is then sent to the realm of the goddess of death known as Hel, or as Marvel put it, Hela. It's this character Hel or Hela that says that she will restore Balder to the mortal realm or the world of the living if all things would weep for him. In Wuthering Waves, we have something that kind of suggests this, and it is when we see Frolova in the trailer. On the left side, we have the Septimontian script. Keep in mind, we have a Solara script, we have a Renacitan or a Gunnan script, and we have a Septimont script.
True.
It is a little bit weird with the Septimont one because we don't know when exactly they use it. It's kind of like only for the gladiator theme stuff that they use the Septimont one. In this scene, the transcript, the Septimont transcript, is flipped around, so you first have to flip it before you can cipher it or translate it. The bottom line will translate to plea for help. The top line is
our plea for help, resolve this my way. D in our stroy. Cartithia before death.
Alphabet, the two words we can make out says my way. So there is this parallel that Hel, who is the goddess of death, made all living things weep for Balder, and in Wuthering Waves we have this parallel with Frolova shown and the text plea for help and something something my way, suggesting that it's on Frolova's terms. In Ragnarok, all creatures then weep except for one being Loki. This means that Balder was not released or restored to the realm of the living, which heralds an unusually harsh winter that lasted for 3 years. This winter is called the Fimbulwinter. Now 3 years is quite significant in Wuthering Waves because we have a 4-year period between the Aegon of Champions. So the 3-year period between the Aegon of Champions, we could have some symbolism or some type of Fimbulwinter or effects of
Fimbulwinter. Oh, and then the whole situation that happened with Mia was in the past Aegon.
The Fimbulwinter. Because of this winter, resources became scarce, which led to people becoming greedy and violent, and humanity, so not the deities, nearly completely wiped each other out. In the story it says, over all the world there shall be mighty battles, and brothers shall slay each other for greed's sake. In Septimont, we have the gladiator fights, which would be the mighty battles, and people slaying each other for greed's sake. While we don't know the entire motive for the Aegon of Champions, we know that people are slaying each other. Now this next part is pretty important in Ragnarok. During this time, there is a constant twilight, and eventually the sun, moon, and stars are...
Right, he needs to stop that. Dude, he needs to stop it. Stop it, bro.
Are hidden from sight. And in Ragnarok, it is specifically said the sun and the moon, which in Wuthering Waves we know relates to Augusta and Juno. Twilight is also represented with Völva and her Lycoris. After this winter, so after the 3-year period, the next event that occurs are the earthquakes. These earthquakes were so bad that they broke the bonds and shackles that held two very strong forces of darkness, the wolf known as Fenrir and the serpent known as Jormungandr.
We have not seen Galbraina yet in the story, right? Absolutely not.
And I hope I got that name right. So if we go to Wuthering Waves, we have two characters, two resonators, who can represent Fenrir and Jormungandr. The obvious one that I'm sure we all know of is Lupa, representing a giant wolf, or a powerful destructive wolf. We know that Völva prophesies and says that Lupa, or most likely Lupa, is going to bring upon the third wave of the Dark Tide.
And then we have to either like kill her or do something else to deal with the entire situation.
Or in other words, she is going to bring upon destruction. This is the exact thing that Fenrir did, is bring upon destruction. The other creature is Jormungandr, the massive sea serpent or snake. Now there is a resonator that represents this, and this would be Galbraina. She has earrings of a snake.
Oh, he's right. Oh, he's right. Oh, he's fucking right. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that kind of just... I feel like that seals the deal. I feel like that... how does he catch this stuff? I'm gonna be real. How does he catch this stuff?
And she does return with the rising dark tide. So this parallel of a wolf and a serpent is already aligning with Ragnarok. After the wolf and the serpent have caused a bit of destruction, the sky will then split apart, and Surtur, the fire giant, will strike down.
And yes, I guess that would be considered the sky splitting apart.
The first thing Surtur will do is destroy the Bifrost, which prevents people from leaving the area or leaving the realm. So everything there is bound to be destroyed. Luckily for Loki, he knows a secret escape route, just like in the movies, but it's played in a different part than in Ragnarok.
And I feel like bro just looks like a Loki. Bro just looks like a Loki. He looks like a trickster. He has been fucking sneaky as hell, conniving as shit across the entire quest, if we're being frankly honest.
After this event takes place, then it's the main battle that occurs, where deities, the big deities, the well-known ones, they all start to perish and fall in battle, left, right, and center. Odin is swallowed by Fenrir, so Lupa's wolf, and Thor is poisoned by the serpent or Galbraina.
Who's Thor then?
So after all of these deities fall in this massive battle, Surtur raises his sword and does one last swing to set the world ablaze, thus destroying the living realm. In the story, or in Ragnarok, it says, "Thus the world ends in darkness as the earth sinks into the sea."
Does this mean that Surtur is actually Kartithia?
So after the living realm is set ablaze or burns, it is then submerged in water. The same way that Völva mentions a third dark tide will occur thanks to Lupa. This pretty much sums up the story of Ragnarok and all the parallels that have been shown so far in Septimont. Whether it is true that Septimont is going to be based on the events of Ragnarok, we will see. I don't think it will be a one-to-one rewrite from Kuro Games. I think they're using important events and storyline and pieces of information correlation.
True.
And they're using it in their own story for Septimont.
I mean, I feel like part of it is them taking like the general main story points and then, you know, fluffing it up in their own ways. Obviously, right? Fenrir is like actually a fucking wolf in the mythology, and then we get like a playable, you know, we get a playable human resonator that has wolf characteristics, that sort of stuff. And, you know, there are a lot of like familial things that aren't necessarily related, but I feel like the main plot points, it does seem like the whole points about like the sky splitting and the wolf bringing about the end, that's too on the nose to not have any parallels. Let's be entirely honest here. It's too on the nose to not be taking a lot of inspiration from it. You'd have to be blind not to.
And so apart from the storytelling or the story of Ragnarok, it's also the prophecy of Ragnarok that aligns with Septimont. The prophecy of Ragnarok was given or told to Odin by a creature known as a Volva. Now a Volva is basically a creature that can foresee the future or see the future.
Are we Odin? And then Volva is Frolova? Which makes sense because Frolova's the one that like told us, huh? They could also be combining some of the roles together, but I'm thinking that the only time that we've like, the only person that's been told about the future and what's going to happen, right? Is Rover getting told by Frolova that Lupa is going to bring about the third dark tide. So...
and then write down and prophesize about it.
Not pre-watched. Yeah, not pre-watched. I'm just saying. I was able to connect the dots too, bucko!
Now the fact that we have somebody who prophesizes the third chapter or the final chapter of the Dark Tide being Cristoforo, this would suggest that he is a seer, or his symbolism in the storytelling is as a seer. And now with version 2.4's trailer or story trailer, we can prove that he is indeed a seer, thanks to the birds that are flying around him. Now there are two possibilities for what this bird could be. The first is a raven, and the other is a crow, both belonging to the same genus. In storytelling, literature, and mythology, there is a difference, a significant difference between these two birds and what they symbolize. Game of Thrones demonstrates the difference between a raven and a crow pretty well. Bran, who is the cripple boy, is a seer, and his powers are connected to a three-eyed raven.
Yeah.
So the symbolism of a raven being able to see the future and prophesize is demonstrated here in Game of Thrones. Likewise, the Night's Watch, the people who watch out for the dead, are referred to as crows. And this reflects the behavior of real crows that circle around the bodies of the dead, so they kind of watching for the dead. It's a play on that concept or that symbolism. So with Cristoforo being able to see and write down this kind of future and prophecy about the Dark Tide, and being a playwright, that would suggest that the bird is a raven and not a crow. Now if you remember all the way in CBT1, there is a cutscene at the very beginning when you log into the game of a Praxidus member with a bird. And because the camera pans into the eye of the bird, this does suggest that it's a raven and that this is the seer. So this may have originally been Cristoforo.
Brother, back in CBT1, and this is the thing, the raven does actually show up in-game. I think there were screenshots of it. I'm surprised Sydney Marr didn't show them. The raven has shown up in actual gameplay. In some of like the cutscenes and the dialogues, Cristoforo's raven would appear.
That is all for this video on Septimont and Ragnarok and the correlation that may be there. Again, this is all speculation.
Odin also has ravens as his seeing eye across the realms. Maybe Cristoforo is Odin then.
And we'll see whether
or Cristoforo's just the raven.
It turns out to be true. I don't think it will be a full rewrite of this taking Ragnarok and putting it in Wuthering Waves. I think the key elements and events will be rewritten to fit the story of Septimont, because we don't really have a focus on sentinels, we just have a focus on warriors. And the focus of Ragnarok was just on the deities. There was no major power difference. It Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you in the next video.
Yeah, it seems like in here, in the Septimont story in particular, yeah, I haven't seen anything about Imperator, nothing about the Threnodian, nothing about Leviathan. It doesn't seem like there's been any focus on them at all, and it's all just been about the units or the NPCs. That's kind of interesting. That is kind of crazy. Yeah, the Raven over here, right? And then this is during I think this is a Ling Yang story quest. Yeah, this is what I meant. This is like the Raven that would pop up during the Ling Yang story quest. This shit been cooking for a while, boys. You can forgive Sid for not remembering that one. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it seems like bro has been observing quite a bit. He's been observing quite a bit. Guys, this was on release of the game. And it seems like over here in Septimont, at the end of Septimont, all of that, that's when it seems like it's all going to be coming together. Brother man, this has been a cook. This has been a marination. Jesus Christ almighty. That's kind of wild. Anyways, great job to Sydney Marr for compiling all this stuff together. Great information, great takes. I feel like this was like an absolute fucking lore dump. But it's like not even like that much of like overall like a spoiler, right? I think it just goes into obviously a bit of a gist of the main story quest, but it gets into just a lot of like the framing and the sort of like background inspiration that we've had. And I gotta say, if you're not able to see the parallels, I think you're just intentionally trying not to. They've done enough differentiation, they've done enough variety that I think it makes a ton of sense. And it's awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. Let me know what you all thought about this one, guys. Peace.